And welcome to another edition of Defo on 5. Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubie Lubitz. And you can pardon me. I need a cut, man, after last night. You know what? It's interesting. And how are you, Mike Lubie Lubitz? Because I don't know what we should do. Should we just eat like a live bird on the set? Should we do the show naked? How stupid, how dumb do we look today as compared to how authoritative we were about the fact that both of our local teams, the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers, if you want to go chronologically, it was the Panthers and then the Miami Heat. We were sure. We never said anything with such certainty on any show that we've ever done. And rarely are we in agreement on anything, Mike Louie Lubitz, but we were in total agreement on this that both the Florida Panthers, I mean, facing elimination against the Boston Bruins, the vaunted Bruins. They just played like shit 2 games in a row at home. Seemed like they were in the series. We tried to make that case like we were Perry Mason. I mean, just riding a long shot there. That after that Game 2 victory in Boston, that the Florida Panthers were very much in the series. We're not going to be outclassed by the Boston Bruins. And then what happens? They get shellacked in Game 3. They yank Alex Lyon, who was their big story in goal. All of a sudden, this guy was playing like the Beezer in 1996. And you're thinking, yeah, the sky's the limit with this kid. He starts to get very shaky. Dr. Strangeglove, right? There's the throw to first base. Oh, it gets by Stewart. And there was no chance last night, was there? I mean, I'm watching the game. I was at a little birthday party for my grandson, Liam. Turned 8 years old, by the way. Very mature young man for 8 years old. And there was a little girl involved. And I came up
Nice.
to him, and there was something going on.
Yeah, by 8.
Something happening. 8?
I mean, I don't know how far you're getting into it, but I was thinking about, I think this girl's cute by first, second. So 8's feasible. That's
Yeah.
second, third grade.
Yeah, I guess I was, right off the Aqualung album by Jethro Tull. Eyeing little girls with bad intent. Although, it was in kindergarten, I think I first
Yeah,
started having.
it's not
Was
like
having fantasies pre-kindergarten. It was not easy to control myself all those years because there was an evolving, emerging sex machine sitting inside of a young fat DeForest. Anyway, and I may as well revert back to that because you know what? I wish I could live my life over again after whiffing on what we did last night. So the Panthers score first, and they continue to carve out a series of 1-goal leads and quickly watch those leads evaporate until finally they got to overtime and only getting there after Sergei Bobrovsky, the guy that we said they'd be better off, and the old cliche applies. Would you be better off putting a sumo wrestler in goal and just having him lay on his side and leaving whatever space there was? You've seen the skills competition at the All-Star game. Can
yes.
everybody just shoot it in there inside of a narrow gap? I guess a lot of these NHL players have that kind of skill. The Bruins didn't yesterday with Bobrovsky, although people were complaining. The usual stuff was going on during the course of the game. People tweeting, people going on social media going, "This fat guy sucks," as he was giving up game-tying goal after game-tying goal after game-tying goal until they got to overtime, and then he stops his breakaway in the final second. Did you catch
What
that?
was that? Like, what? They literally had one last offensive opportunity, and they blow they blow the face off, and then it leads to them clearing the ice. Like, all right, it's gonna go to overtime, and out of nowhere, Marchand's by himself.
Cruising in on goal with plenty of time to get the shot off. This was
It's
not
Bobrovsky.
Grayson Allen. Yeah.
And it's Bobrovsky.
Fires one, and
Just-
Bobrovsky makes, I don't know if it was the most incredible save we've ever seen, but certainly a very credible save.
For him, it was a great save for him.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
Saving that puck. I'm like, there it is.
You probably had as much likelihood of stopping that puck, and sure enough, he makes the great save, and they win in overtime with Tkachuk getting the game-winning goal after a serious blunder. I mean, you talk about a bonehead play by Ullmark.
Yes, that was bad.
Who was in goal, and he gets out of the net behind the net, blows a pass, and then has to scramble back in there, and Tkachuk's sitting on the empty side of the net and just pops one in, and that's it. We're coming back to Florida for a Game 6, which was unexpected completely. The Panthers were 2-1 underdogs in that game. So here's our first mistake of the night, Louie. 7 o'clock, before 7, 6:50, 9:50, we should have immediately put $100 on the Panthers on the money line. No?
I believed what I said. I thought both would go down. Like, I believe
Yeah.
I meant it.
And then, I mean, the shocker of shockers, and I have to admit, I probably dozed off after the Bucks appeared
You're
to be
gonna see, you're talking
cruising.
like you watched it. Like, I was, and you weren't responding. Mayo was texting us, and I was asleep. I woke up and I was like, "Oh, how much did they lose by?" I'm like, "Overtime." And my buddies are
I was stunned. I really was. I dozed off, and the Bucks were cruising. Very similar scenario to game number 4, as the Bucks looked to be in complete command, and you thought, "Wow, they're coming back in a series. They're going to go back to Milwaukee 2-2." Antetokounmpo's got his feet and legs underneath him. He's going to go off, which he did in his ball game. I mean, it wasn't like Antetokounmpo was a non
except for from the
uh,
line. He went back to his
entity.
fucking ass on the free throw line.
Yeah, I think he went like 10 for 23
He
from
missed
the
30
foul line.
assists more than he made.
Yeah, which was uncharacteristic of the way he's been playing in the last couple of years, ever since that whole business where they used to do the countdown, where it took him like a half an hour. I mean, he wouldn't have even cleared the pitch clock in baseball to get his free throws off. And if people count 9, 8, 7, 6, and he's still goofing around, he's scratching his balls, he's got his finger in his ear, he's dribbling around, he's moving the ball in his hands, and then finally gets a shot off well after the time would have evaporated and expired for him to do it within regulation. And yet the referees would let it go, just like they let go of the 5 steps that he takes to the basket every time that he makes a drive to the hoop, and the 2 or 3 people that he mows down
Yes.
who happen to be in his path. Never is there a charging call against Giannis Antetokounmpo, because you wouldn't want to compromise potential league MVP. I don't know who the league was rooting for in this. I mean, the Bucks were the number 1 seed. Many people had them penciled in as the champions of the NBA. Certainly, they were the favorite to go to the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference. And here they are on the streets once again, a retribution for that 4-game sweep they shellacked the Heat with when they met in the playoffs in the year after the bubble year, where the Heat had also embarrassed the Milwaukee Bucks with a very similar configuration, although there have been some
They
subtle
didn't have
changes
Holiday.
to the Heat lineup.
They that was a team that didn't have Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
They went and added Drew Holiday, and then the next year they went and won a title.
They may as well have not had Drew Holiday, because his primary responsibility was trying to contain Jimmy Butler, and nobody's containing this cat. Another phenomenal performance, including, I mean, that play will never work again. That inbounds play. Did you see how they got the game-tying basket to
Like,
take
you
the game to overtime?
well, first of all, why don't you have Lopez and Giannis on Jimmy? But that's a whole other thing. Like,
Or at least under the basket have
he does
Lopez.
give Connaughton a shove, and of course, Buck fans are losing it. And I'm like, so they had him double teamed, and that's where your focus is. Like, he shouldn't have been able to. If it's Brooke Lopez, he's not shoving Brooke Lopez. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, how do
sorry.
you not have somebody under the basket, thinking that one of the only ways that they can win this game is to
I
get a
play.
shot right under the basket? No matter what. I mean, you might have sent another cutter to the hoop at that point, working off a screen. But Budenholzer, wow. I mean, he looked like a guy. Did you see him in the post-game interview?
No.
He looked like a broken man. He really did. I mean,
He says
usually you'll see a coach and you can tell he's taking it on the chin there. But he looked like a man whose contract was already halfway in the shredder after the game last night. He was beside himself.
Look, they got that title, but again, remember that was there was a lot that went right for them to get that title. The Nets had both Irving and Harden down, and still, if Durant's foot is like 6 inches back, they lose to that Nets team. Like, they played they played the Hawks, who were and they took them to 6 games. They went versus a young Suns team, and if Aiden didn't forget how to play basketball for 3 games, they lose that finals. That is their crowning achievement. Like, Bud's not a good coach. They just had the GM did a good job at putting the right talent around Giannis. Like, but Budenholzer sucks. Like, he's always sucked. And last year, yeah, Middleton goes down, but look what we're doing without Hero. Like,
Yes.
there's no Hero. There's
All
no
of a sudden, everybody else is awakened from the dead. It's amazing.
Spoelstra does his best. Like, Scoop talked about it. Like, the great coaches do their best when they're like, oh shit.
Look at Pat
Budenholzer,
Riley with that Anthony Mason team. We often talk about it. We've talked about it with Riley, where he said that I don't know if we're putting words in his mouth, but I don't think Riley would
something like
capitulate to something that we said and say, "Oh yeah, that's absolutely right, Defo," because if he had listened to what we said, he would have even watched the game last night. So we had them getting wiped out. So did the rest of the world, Lubie. Is it okay to be wrong when the rest of the world is right there with you, Mr. Donald Trump?
I mean, you've talked about it when handicappers, all logic is right and they go wrong. You sort of give them a pass because sometimes it's sports. Bingo. Like,
Weird shit happens. Yes. I believe the final line was 13 points in favor of the Bucks. We had suggested that when it was 10.5, 11.5, that was a pretty generous allotment
Yes.
to give a team that was in there fighting for sure and had a guy that was playing beyond your wildest imagination of his capabilities in Jimmy Butler, who, again, what did he rattle off? Like 13 in a row during the comeback in the fourth quarter? The Heat were easily beaten in this game. And then Budenholzer, brilliant design of a final second play where he has the ball in Grayson Allen's hands. I don't know if that was his idea to begin with, but somehow the ball ends up in the hands of Grayson Allen with about 2 seconds left on the shot clock, and he decides to dribble like he was dribbling out the clock and going to give the ball to Coach K at Duke.
Well, no, the before that, and that's when people were pissed. After the Jimmy Butler shot, that the shot itself is what's important, not whatever contact was there. There was a half a second left, and they had a timeout. So, in the NBA, if you take a timeout, you can move it to the other side of the court.
Yeah.
And you have fucking Giannis.
Throw it inside just like the Heat did, right?
He doesn't take the timeout. They throw it into Giannis, and Giannis looks around lost.
And throws it away, yeah.
No, they didn't even get a shot off.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It just went to overtime. I was like, okay.
It was nuts. Anyway, a phenomenal play by Jimmy Butler. And look, a certain element of luck is involved, even when you're hot as a pistol. And I probably shouldn't make any gun references during this program, but nonetheless, the man was on fire, right? He was unstoppable. That lob comes, he's off balance, he's falling to the ground, and he just shoves a shot up there, and it goes in. And that's how you get to overtime in that game. So, and I thought there was a strong likelihood. I mean, I would not have been at all surprised if the Milwaukee Bucks had won last night, which they were favored by 13. We were certain the Heat were going to lose. And then, come back and beat Miami here in town and gone back and won the series in 7. Even at 3-1, I didn't think there was any certainty that the Heat were going to win the series. So what we have now is Heat versus Knicks. The Knicks closed out their series with the Cavaliers. They took care of the Cavaliers with relative ease, which is really surprising. I thought the Cavs had an excellent season. They managed to contain Donovan Mitchell in the series. I believe he had like 23 points last night, which wasn't bad, but he was not going to perform like Jimmy Butler against the New York Knicks. The Knicks have an injury problem with Julius Randle, who has received a mixed bag of reviews this year. There have been times where people have looked at Julius Randle and said, wow, remarkable season, an amazing turnaround from where he was at last year, when it looked like his season 2 years back was a fluke, as he really declined last year. And then this year they were ready to get rid of him beginning of the season. He starts having a real good year, all-star caliber season. And of late, though, he's battled injuries and has not been as consistently effective as he was at different times during the course of the regular season, and now has an ankle injury. I think he rolled an ankle in the ballgame last night and did not return to the contest. He came back out to the court, and status a little bit shaky for the opener, which takes place on Sunday. Heat Knicks. When was the last time they met, Lubie? 2012 it was. I'll give you the answer.
Melo was there, and they demolished the Jeremy Lin nonsense, and they were the ones that put an end to the Jeremy Lin nonsense.
That was it. Linsanity just became insanity, and that was it. Jeremy Lin was cast adrift, and the Knicks hadn't been the same since. They've been pretty much of an awful team, non-playoff contender, and OOP, as they say in dog racing, out of the picture. Not the case this year, as they came in as a number 5 seed. I think this is only the 4th time that you've had these kind of matchups in NBA history, where a 5 and an 8.
Yeah, NBA.
I think 3 of them or 2 of them were 5 versus 8, and one was a 2 versus a 7 versus 6 or something like that. But it doesn't happen very often, and it's going to happen. It's going to begin on Sunday. The Allen Houston shot came in what, 1999?
Yeah.
Allen Houston. So that's 24 years that's been haunting me, that stadium announcement.
I hate that, Sean.
Allen Houston, front rim, backboard in. You know what the final was in that game, Lubie? I mean, what a difference. And we used to joke that the Knicks had to bring metal detectors or go through metal detectors to get into the arena. And the same thing with the Heat. They both played this down and
They
dirty
kill each other. Yeah.
defensive style, which the NBA hated. That final was 78-77. That was
That's
the
what
final score. Think about that.
Yeah.
We were 128, 126, all being in overtime last night, but it was tied at 118 after regulation. So they had 236 points as compared to 155 points. Imagine that. What a difference there is in NBA play right now. That whole series was like that, too. I mean, that might have been one of the higher scoring games. But and Riley was loving it. How boring was that basketball when you think about it, Lubie?
I get into it because it was contentious, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't
Such ugliness.
well played. It was just we're gonna kill each other, and who luckily gets more points at the end will win.
You know what's exciting about this? I mean, we're talking about two phenomenal, improbable victories. Had you parlayed, Lubie, your $100 on the money line from the Panthers, which you now would have been up 100, so you would have had 200 going to the Miami Heat, who I believe were 5-1 underdogs by the time the game went off. You were getting 5-1, so you would have won $1,000 if you just parlayed money line the two teams.
I didn't believe it. I wouldn't have touched it.
Why don't we have the balls to do something like that ever?
I'm so in awe. I can't believe the Panthers actually found a way to get the luck on their side, and the Heat I thought was like, I was like, yeah, they're not winning the game. I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, Bobrovsky makes a save like he was Patrick Waugh on that final shot, which would have been just a fitting end to a very frustrating season for the Florida Panthers. And the Heat fans, you guys out there at 5 Reasons, you were all complaining. Oh, I don't even want to make the playoffs. What's the point?
Yeah. And now
they were trailing Chicago late in the fourth quarter of the second play-in game. What an embarrassment this season was going to be. They were about to get bounced out and finish outside the top 8 in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
And here they are. I mean, you would have to think with a legitimate shot to knock off the New York Knicks and then face the winner of Philadelphia and Boston. And by that time, who knows how good this Heat team will be.
Well, unbelievable. I have Hero back. I mean, Hero it was 4 to 6 weeks. This series was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This series is going to be 2 weeks. So you never know. I'm definitely not looking past the Knicks. I hope they are treating it like as though they're the underdog, because they probably will be. It'll be Madison Square Garden, and people will forget everything they just did, and they'll forget their opponent. And I'm hoping everyone goes Knicks' way because Brunson is tough and all the crap. And I'm fighting all the negative things I want to say about the Knicks, because to me, they just beat the Bucks in 5.
So, yeah, imagine that. But, I mean, it wasn't like they eked out a luck-out win in the 7th game with an injured Antetokounmpo for the whole series.
He was there the last 2 games. He played phenomenal yesterday.
And they beat him in 5 games like it was nothing.
I wouldn't say like it was nothing, but they showed heart and grit. They hadn't shown they look like the Heat we've seen forever. And they didn't look like that the last 2 games. The Hawks and the Bulls game weren't what we just saw.
All right, I think we're going to do our regular show naked today. Take all of your clothes off, Lubie. That would be the first and last time I ever say something like that to you. But we really should. We should just go Jeff Toobin here, like we run CNN or a conference call, and just start self-flagellation, something to stave off the embarrassment, to acknowledge the embarrassment of our position of yesterday. So the Heat and the Panthers, both the Heat now moving on to the second round of the playoffs. Panthers still alive, have a home game now to try and figure out if they can make it a Game 7 against the Boston Bruins and come in. You would have to imagine certainly a Bergeron return for the Bruins. They had a lot of things going their way. And you were thinking, okay, they can't get it in regulation. They kept coming back. They'll win this thing in overtime. And before you know it, the Panthers had that goal with Tkachuk. And the series continued, and we look like complete fools. If you could book the media's action, you would be a rich man today. All right, that's it for Defo on 5. We'll join you again tomorrow right here in this same spot on 5 Reasons Sports Network. You can catch the Defo Show on South Florida Live, and we'd love it if you subscribe to our channel as well, as we love working with Scoop Skolnick and all of his people there at 5 Reasons. But you know what? We need a little piece of our own. So subscribe to South Florida Live. Get the Defo Show, which cranks up at 7 o'clock Eastern Time each and every morning. We go till about 9 o'clock. And we will see you on that program as we say so long for this week's, today's edition anyway, of Defo on 5.